welcome. Today I'm with Dawn Ray from Kiln Associates and we're chatting about building resilience in the workplace. Welcome, Dawn.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Nice to see you again.
Thanks.
So one of the things that we have in our industry is a very busy working environment. People work long days, they've got lots of targets, it's busy. So how would you advise them just to keep that working ethic and comfortable environment going?
I think first of all, it's about energy and energy levels and sustaining a kind of, the physical ability to keep on top of all of that. It's about taking regular breaks, and I know that's not easy in this industry. I know everybody's, if you're front of house, you've got clients coming in, you've got more clients waiting, the phones are never ending. But it's really, really important to kind of centre yourself. Take your break. It's vital that you take those breaks. In other industries, we have structured breaks, we have a morning break, we have a very, laid out and often rostered lunch break. And I know none of that applies in these industries because it's dynamic, things are ever changing. But it is vital to try and keep an eye on that and give yourself the opportunity to take some downtime. Easier said than done, absolutely. But just going outside, Charlotte, and having a little bit of fresh air, a little bit of a walk, sometimes can kind of get you to refocus. So, it's those kinds of things.
So how long is a break, do you think? Because if I said to my boss, can I have an hour, he might raise his eyebrows.
And, the health and safety side of things would dictate that you have to have a certain amount of breaks for the hours that you work if you're full-time, for instance. And what generally would happen is it would be a 20-minute and then it would be a lunch half hour. So I think in total it's around about an hour. How you then do that and how realistic that is working in these environments, the industry of estate agencies, is very difficult. So it could be a snatch 10 minutes, it could be a bolt to the shops outside to buy something for lunch and bring it back, or 9 times out of 10 you're sitting eating your lunch at your desk. And often that isn't the way forward.
So why does that help then? What's the process that I can explain to my boss that it's a good idea for me to have these breaks? Why does it work?
I think it's about productivity, isn't it? At the end of the day, as I say, even going outside to have some fresh air and to refocus will bring you back and you'll be more productive. So I think it's kind of, seeing is believing, if you like. But also having that conversation that says, look, I really need to have a few minutes. I need to take some time off. So, fair enough, we're all pitching in, but for lunch, I'm going to take a half an hour and I'm not actually going to be in the office for that half hour. So, it's just appealing to the sensibility of somebody to say, actually, you deserve that half an hour off. You deserve some fresh air. Come back, be refocused. They'll soon see the benefits of that because productivity will go up.
Yeah, and it does work, absolutely. I totally agree with you.
Absolutely.
So in addition, we have roles that managers will carry out one-to-ones or monthly meetings. Why are those a benefit, and what benefit can the staff have for having those sorts of conversations with their management team?
Performance and reviews are absolutely vital. They're vital in any industry. And they're vital for a couple of reasons. The first of which is that this is probably the only one-to-one time you're going to have with your manager. So therefore, it's about the manager making sure that they've really nailed this, that the person they're reviewing is feeling special enough to have that time with them, because it's busy, it's a dynamic, it's ever-changing environment. But remember, time is your most vital commodity. So spending time with somebody really does lift the spirits. Reviews, it's an odd thing because every industry has a performance review and it's done in a very different way. I always look at it as being a kind of 3 sections, if you like. So we start with the review, and the review, of course, has to be on performance. What is it that you're doing for the company? What is it that you can be doing? After that, it's about giving somebody the opportunity to speak for themselves. It's about giving somebody the opportunity to have that time with their manager to talk about how they're feeling. Now, yes, of course, we're all busy. You could say, I'm not a counsellor. I could get caught up in somebody's problems. But actually, some really good active listening skills will really get to the bottom of potentially some of the problems that people are having and some of the barriers that people put in the way of being more productive, if you like. The third stage of that review is all about winding it up and making sure that as you leave the review, you're very clear about what the next steps are. You've talked about what support you need, and you've been very happy with every message that's come across. So yeah, very vital.
So as a staff member, should I be taking a bit of time to think about what I want out of this this
Indeed.
time with my manager?
Yeah.
And what sort of things should we be thinking about as staff?
We should always be preparing for a review. If your manager comes off the cuff and said, look, you know, we're going to have that review, and you haven't had time to prepare, then in my opinion, it's probably a very much a waste of time, because it's about you understanding when it's going to happen and about you planning for it. So that's about you giving a lot of thought as to what it is that you're currently doing, what it is that you need maybe some help and support with. Let's not forget what you're really good at, because the review is a great opportunity for a manager to say to somebody, you're doing a great job, and there are people in the business who I think would benefit from some of the things you're doing. So that's one way to start developing people, sharing best practice. In terms of preparing for your own review, lots of people I come across, they'll say, well, you know, I did think this, but I really didn't feel it was my place to mention. What better place to mention than in your review? Because it's a quiet, confidential and safe space. If there are issues, it's your opportunity to talk to your manager about that.
Absolutely.
And a really good manager will take that on board and they will start to make some changes for you. So planning is key. Know what your performance is, know what it is that you want from the review, and if there are any support, if you need any support, make sure you're asking for it. Don't be shy.
Yeah, wise
Don't
words.
be shy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wise words, absolutely. You mentioned as well there sort of about that busy environment, and we often work to targets.
Yeah.
And targets can be sales targets, but they might also be deadlines. I mean, we're always in a rush in our industry. So again, how would you advise staff, bearing in mind the importance of these deadlines, how to make the most of the momentum and keep these targets going and not get demoralised when things aren't going quite right?
I think the first thing to say, Charlotte, is yes, you're right, absolutely. We all work in a target-driven environment in all industries. But statistics will tell you that the most productive people are the people that understand where the company are going. And of course, in the estate agency world, there are lots of smaller agents, there are lots of larger agents. Is the business good at coming forward with what their goals and objectives are? Have they given the people who work for them the message? This is where we want to be. This is what we're currently doing. I wonder sometimes whether or not an employee is aware of how their business is doing. And if the answer to that is they're not, then they're not bought into it. So therefore, motivation is a really difficult thing to get going. You're only ever motivated if you feel you're part of a team, that you're part of something, and that there is a direction in which you're all heading. If you fail to see where that is, or you haven't been told where that is, then it's difficult to work towards that. So therefore, motivating yourself on a day-to-day basis can be pretty challenging.
Yeah, so in terms of those days when you think you aren't hitting the targets that you need to hit, or you haven't met a deadline, how do you manage that sort of as a confidence type thing? And you know, how would you advise somebody to manage that?
Well, you know, if you, for instance, had somebody who has been given a target, but they've not really been given any sort of instruction around that, they've not been given the bigger picture, they don't understand where the company's heading, then you know, it's about speaking out. It's about feeling confident enough to say, I appreciate you've asked me to do this, but I need to know why I need to do this. So if you can sustain somebody with that information, then they'll get right behind that. They'll be bought into it and they'll be streets ahead.
Yeah.
In terms of, you know, reaching targets, which, you know, I mean, sometimes people work in call centres and it's always, oh, you have to make X amount of calls or you have to take X amount of calls. And it's difficult to do that when you have to hit all of the key points and you're very much being watched and you're very much being measured. And it is a very difficult one to do. But I always think that any good business will listen to their staff, which for me, what's key is team meetings. It's key to understand what everybody's thinking. Is everybody having the same problems? Is everybody like-minded?
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then team meetings will be a forum through which people can chat about that.
So you mentioned there about targets and momentum and drive. Change is the other thing that we're dealing with a lot in our industry at the moment.
Of course, yeah.
That can be, the legislation's changing every 5 minutes. We're dealing with new legislation in lettings at the moment. But also we've got regulation coming up.
Yeah.
We're all going to have to get qualifications. So how do you get staff engaged in this sort of phase of change?
First of all, I think that in any business, the change word is a scary one. When any business is changing and the people who work for that business are told that things have to change, it's human nature to start worrying about that. Oh my word, how is that going to affect me? What is it I'm going to have to do? Will I have to change this? What will happen for me on a personal level? You know, there's lots and lots of questions around that. So I think, again, it brings us right back to being very, very clear about the business goals and objectives. But just remember, change is a really good thing for us as human beings. Change, it mashes things up a bit. It makes life more interesting. We are, by nature, adaptable as people. So we can often stretch ourselves and be very surprised at how good we manage that. So actually, there's some real positives come out of it. Change is new, it's exciting, it's energising. And we start to come back to how change is managed in businesses. That's a whole different concept. That's about things where we're preparing culturally, you know, we're looking at things like welfare. How is it going to affect our people? We're asking them to do more. We're asking them to change the way they do things. And remember, change is all about being bought into the why. Why?
Exactly.
Why are we changing? You get the message right, people will be very happy to change.
So it all ties in, doesn't it? Whether those targets are, you know, deadlines or figures, it all links into those changes, doesn't it, I guess? And understanding, as you say, the bigger picture, which is absolutely key.
Absolutely.
So relationships at work. So why is it important that we're going through periods of change? I've got targets to hit. How important are relationships in the working environment?
Relationships are vital. They're vital in any working, you know, arena and environment. And the reason for that is because of the length of time we spend there.
Yes.
Look how long we spend at work. You know, we spend more time at work than we do with our loved ones. You know, and equally as much time as we do while we're sleeping, if you like. So to come into work, it's about building relationships enough to sustain. Now, if we're really lucky, we've got very good work pals, colleagues that we can, you know, invest in, who can support us. They're aware of ourselves, not just professionally, but personally, and very much aware of what's going on for us. Now, from a counselling background, I think it's a vital support to be able to talk. I think it's also vital to be able to say to somebody who's a trusted friend and colleague, I'm not feeling good right now. People always say to you, how are you feeling? It's our natural, you know, response to go, I'm okay, actually. Are you really okay? Probably not. And on some instances, absolutely not. It's understanding the trust that's needed to be able to just sit down with somebody at work and say, have you got 5 minutes? Have a cuppa, sit down. Lots of your friends at work will pick up when things aren't right for you. But just having that support system. You know, businesses are very good. Small businesses are particularly good because they've got that family feel where if there's something going on for you, there's always somebody there for you. But those relationships are vital. So
what about, so my manager hasn't given me somebody to buddy up with. Should I go and find myself my own buddy? I've just started in a new job role or I'm in a new department. How important is that, do you think?
I think it just depends largely on the personality, doesn't it? You know, we have people who are very outgoing, we have people who are very introvert. Going into any new business is always a challenge for people. Getting to know people, first of all, is a challenge. And I think businesses could be doing a lot more than they currently do. So things like really promoting the social aspect of it. And that could be something like, you know, we're going to have a team meeting, but we're going to have it at the end of the day. And then after that, we're all going to go out for a cheap pasta somewhere and a few drinks. I mean, don't underestimate the benefit of actually going out and socialising with your colleagues. You know, after a few drinks, you know, you finally find something in somebody, you'll get really good friends and, you know, that will be a really good way to sustain it. It isn't easily if you're an introvert socially, of course it's not. But, you know, the industry itself could be doing a lot more. Reward and recognition. You know, making sure that there are some kind of group goals to go for. And what that does is that throws you in the mix with people so that you've got that joined up kind of objective and goal to go for. That in itself will form friendships.
Absolutely. So in summary, just give me your key points as to resilience. What's going to make me more resilient in my working environment? How am I going to get to the end of the day and think, okay, I've done all I can and I'm going to leave it at the door, I guess, is part of the advice, isn't it?
And I think that's a really interesting point, isn't it? You know, that we are who we are. We bring ourselves to work and we're human, so we bring all of ourselves to work. The fact that somebody might say, oh, look, you know, come to work and just be the work person. I don't think that's valid at all because, you know, we are human. We have things going on in our personal lives. To be able to come to work, but to look at key elements such as making sure you take breaks, focus on yourself, eat well, use the opportunity to speak to your manager in the reviews, understand what the business goals are.
Yep.
You know, so you're not just bringing your whole self, but you understand the whole self of the industry itself and of the business itself. And resilience will come from that because you're bought into that. But take care emotionally, take care physically.
Brilliant, lovely. Thank you as always, Dawn. Really enjoyed that.
My
Thank you.
pleasure. Thank you.